You guys sit down. I'm not going to be able to start if you carry on like this. I'm gone. So one of the joys and sadnesses of part of it is being upstage by your kids. So here goes. I'm aware that traditionally the father of the groom doesn't always get to talk, so thanks guys. And I gather I don't have any specific duties, I just get to ramble on about a whole bunch of stuff, so brace yourself. I'd like to welcome you all to this very, very special day. This is just extraordinary. I suppose when Dan and I sat down in the pub a couple of days ago and we talked about stuff, I just remember how much I love my wedding day, and I think I just wanted that for him, and I think he has, pretty much. Yeah. So welcome to Hampshire, those of you who've had to travel. The red wine incident, at least my son had the sense to drink the wine before distributing it. First time I met my in-laws, I poured a litre of yolk all over the back of their car and their dog. So there's a bit of a theme here, and I haven't even drunk it. Some of you,
new car.
Yeah, it was a new car. Some of you come up from Norfolk. The Pentos have come down, various members of Richard's family. Haley's just got a job working in the more sort of environmentalism and education. I think we can all agree we're stupidly proud of her work she's doing. And she tells me that by 2050, if we don't change things, 90% of Norfolk will be underwater. Which is, it sounds like a bad thing, but I'm guessing the wet feet will come in handy. Closer to home, some of you come here from Portsmouth. I heard about a chap who was getting sentenced from Portsmouth, and he was absolutely incensed when he got 15 years for cycling his bike without his lights on, and he was outraged. And then he spotted that the judge had a Southampton accent, and he was just outraged. And the judge goes to him, well, sit down. You just need to be glad you were doing it at day, because if it was at night, you'd have been in very serious trouble. I grew up in South Africa, as some of you know, and one of the things that South Africans have managed to do not so well over the last few months is deal with COVID. I gather they tried to follow the science, and they closed the beaches, and nobody could understand why. The bars were open, the restaurants were open, but they closed the beaches. Turns out they thought that it was arriving in waves, and so they thought... Mind you, we haven't done such a good job in this country, have we? Boris took his wife out, I'm not sure which number, but he took his wife out for a meal, and he gets to the front of the restaurant, and the guy says, track and trace, and I need some ID, please. He said, I'm the Prime Minister, I don't have ID. And the guy says, well, I'm really sorry, but you need ID if you want to come in. He said, well, what should I do? He said, well, we had Mark Cavendish in here last week, and he said he didn't have ID. And so I said, well, do something that proves that you're Mark Cavendish. So he went straight out there, he got on a Boris bike, and he was doing 50 miles an hour down the high streets on a Boris bike. I thought, well, nobody could do that other than Mark Cavendish, so come on in. So what can you do to prove that you're Boris? And he goes, oh, I have no idea, my mind's gone a blank. I just called him and he said, stop this, come on in. I know we've been watching the Olympics recently. I've got a quick update, and it turns out we swept the board at the fake tan Olympics last night. I don't know if you saw this. I'm trying not to make eye contact with some of the people in the room. so we swept the board. We got all 3 medals, and it was all going brilliantly until I got to the podium presentation, and they couldn't work out which order to put mahogany, olive, and bronze in the award colours, but it all got horribly confusing, but they managed to figure it out in the end. So 26 years ago, a young man was there actually, and with the confidence of youth, stood up to give a speech. And I know it happened because my wife reminded me of this when I forgot our anniversary 3 weeks ago. Dan, don't do that. Anyway, with the confidence of youth, he looked out over a group, and some of you were there on that day, and he looked at his bride, and now Jordan, I have to say, you look absolutely stunning. I think we can all agree. Yeah. I have to tell you that you're the second most beautiful bride that I've seen in this room. So, I recall saying then, and I do still believe it's true, that a wedding's not about just two people. I mean, it's obviously about you, Jordan, obviously. But it's actually about something much bigger. It's about what we're doing. It's something about sacred and timeless. It's something about a stone skimming across a pond hitting the water, and we have these points in our lives that mark out our lives. And I think that's what today is. And I just kind of find it a real blessing that I can stand up here with you all 26 years after standing up there as a young man and dream of better days to come. And boy, do we need to do that right now, don't we? And as I was writing this, I was thinking about grandparents, and I was thinking about how I didn't really know my grandparents, and Dan's talked about his four. But I think, frankly, it's bloody awesome that we've got to the end of the last 16 months and we've got all grandparents here. Yeah. We've got all 8 of you. So I think what I'd like to do, rather than everybody standing up for a toast, I'd like the 8 of you to stand up, and I'd like to toast the grandparents. Because I'd like you to be toasted. I'd like to toast the grandparents for the sacrifices they've made that got us here, for the love and the dedication and the persistence that's got us here. So please, stand up, and if the rest of you sit down. So I'm no good to you if you fall over. I'd like to talk a little bit about Jordan. Quite a lot has been said, and I might be reiterating, but my son went to university a few years ago, and he was lost, and he was in search of the young man he was going to become. And what I've observed is that you sort of rescued each other. And you face some challenges, and you're going to face some more. I think you are always more than the sum of your individual strengths and weaknesses. Jordan, you drive me nuts, frankly. I have no words to respond to your own peculiar brand of madness sometimes. But you've enriched my life, you've enriched our lives, you've enriched my son's life. You make him happy. And my mum said today that love is about putting the needs of the other person first, regardless of the cost to you. And I think that's what I see you do on a daily basis. And that's where I see the two of you operating. So, welcome. I will also say that sometimes they remind me more of a couple of 6-year-olds who've been given too much Tizer and left in the but that's okay. Dan, on behalf of my wife, and yes, Sean, the patriarchy does still exist, so. On behalf of my wife, I think it would be remiss not to have a birth story. So Dan seemed to be turning up on time when he was, relatively straightforward NCT-style birth and delivery and all that. Unlike his brother, who obviously saw fit to crap himself and then breathe. So everything seems to be going all right, and then true to form, Dan doesn't turn up, and it's sort of things are not going terribly well, and we do a few bits and bobs, and it all gets a bit sweaty, and this blue, lifeless, not really contributing, lying around, you know, a bit like that most days. he gets to turn up, and I spend 5 minutes waiting for him to breathe, and then waiting for him to cry, and then a year waiting for him to bloody stop. I think Sarah was on the telephone with Vicky when Dee was a little bit younger, and she asked Dan she asked Vicky to put Dan down, which I thought was a bit harsh, but I think she meant put Dan down when I'm talking to you on the phone so I can actually hear you speak. And when Vix told her that actually he was 2 rooms and 2 doors away, and Sarah still couldn't hear her over the phone, I think we had a taste of things to come. And he's carried on in that vein pretty much. He's bouncy and loud and he's opinionated. He's absolutely never wrong, and he obviously gets all these characteristics from his mother. He's got a pretty much uncanny and generally infallible ability to calculate precisely how much work is required and exactly by when, although occasionally that goes a little bit awry, doesn't it? I do remember one parent's evening stomping off saying, well, if he doesn't give a toss, or words to that effect, if he doesn't give a toss, neither do I, and I'm hungry and I want to go home. So it's not always been straightforward, but I think he went to Zimbabwe and he actually started to figure out who he wanted to be and the man he wanted to be. And he didn't really know how that was going to pan out, but at least he got into Oxford, and at least he got into a degree, and at least he got into Jordan. And I think that's been a massive turning point. And it's just been an absolute joy to see you on this journey. And frankly, I don't have any words of advice or wisdom, but I do have the words of Khalil Gibran. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not of you. And though they are with you, they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts. For they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls. For their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, and seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backwards, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children as living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness, for even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves also the bow that is stable. And so Dan and I sat down in the pub the other night talking about what you want for yourself and what you want for your kids. And we all say, oh, I want my children to be happy. I don't think I do. I think that's nice, but happiness kind of comes and goes, success comes and goes, money comes and goes. I think what I want for you is to be content, to know that you're in the right place, in the right skin, doing the right thing with the right person and the right people. And I think you are, and I think that's magnificent.